She got into the wrong car on her birthday. The Mafia boss locked the doors and said, "You're not leaving. If you're already hooked, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because this story is about to get wild." Emily Carter got into the wrong car at 11:32 p.m. on her 26th birthday, wearing a silver dress she'd saved 3 months to buy and clutching a half-empty champagne bottle from a celebration where no one had remembered it was her birthday. In exactly 5 minutes, a bullet would shatter the window beside her head. In exactly 2 hours, she would be locked in a penthouse 40 stories above the city with no escape and no way to call for help. But she didn't know any of that yet. Right now, she was standing on a rain-slicked Manhattan sidewalk, watching her rideshare app glitch at 3% battery. "Happy birthday to me," she muttered, pulling her thin coat tighter against the April wind. Nothing like turning 26 to remind you exactly how forgettable you were. It wasn't the forgotten cake or the friends who'd spent dinner on their phones. It was the way the whole world seemed to move past her, like she was background scenery in someone else's highlight reel, invisible even when she was standing right there. Just another birthday proving what she already knew. Some people were meant to be remembered, and some people were meant to fade into the wallpaper. The dinner at Marco's had been exactly what she'd expected. Her friends ordered appetizers she was allergic to, talked about their promotions while she pushed pasta around her plate, and not one person noticed when she excused herself to the bathroom and didn't come back. She'd waited 15 minutes outside, testing if anyone would text. No one did. The rain started as a drizzle, then turned vicious. April in New York was beautiful if you had somewhere warm to go, but Emily's studio apartment was 40 minutes away and her phone was dying. She watched the battery drop from 3% to nothing. The screen went black. A black sedan pulled up to the curb, sleek and expensive, windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. Relief flooded through her. She didn't check the license plate. Her hair was plastered to her face, mascara probably running, and she just wanted to go home and pretend this night had never happened. She yanked open the back door and threw herself inside. "Oh, thank God," she breathed, sinking into leather that smelled like expensive cologne and something darker she couldn't place. "West 47th Street, please. I'm sorry my phone died, but the ride should be in the system. Can you turn up the heat? I'm freezing." A voice cut through her rambling like a blade through silk. "I'm not your driver." Emily's eyes snapped open. The man in the front seat had turned, and everything inside her went still. Steel gray eyes met hers in the rearview mirror, set in a face that looked like it had been carved from marble. Sharp jawline, dark hair swept back, and an expression that suggested her presence was a problem he was already calculating how to solve. He was handsome in a way that made her throat tight, the kind of handsome that came with danger warnings. She tried to find her voice, but it came out small and shaky. I'm the one who called the rideshare. You're supposed to take me to West 47th. He stared at her for 3 long seconds. Then his eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, and something changed in his expression. Something cold and lethal. The sedan lurched forward so hard her head slammed against the headrest. "Hey!" She grabbed the seat, indignation flooding through her panic. "What are you doing? Stop the car right now, or I swear I'll." Another car pulled alongside them, black and predatory. The window rolled down. A gun. The sound that escaped her throat was barely human. Oh my God, is that a hand shot back, closed around her shoulder, and shoved her down with brutal efficiency. Down. Now. One word. Not a request. A command. The first gunshot shattered the rear window. Emily screamed, glass raining down as she pressed her face into the leather seat, champagne bottle rolling across the floor. More shots, crack, 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 and she could hear him speaking in rapid Italian, his voice completely calm, like being shot at was just another Tuesday night. "Let me out," she screamed, voice raw with terror. "Stop the car. Please." The word that came back was flat. Final. Unshakable. "No." The chase continued. Sharp turns that threw her against the door. Bullets pinging off metal. Her champagne bottle shattered somewhere near her feet. When the car finally stopped, she stayed face down, trembling, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Up!" A hand gripped her arm and pulled her upright. Through the shattered window, she saw it. A towering glass building, all sharp angles and cold luxury, stretching up into the rain-soaked sky. The penthouse lights glowed at the very top, 40 stories above the street. He was already out, moving around to her door. When he opened it, his expression was pure stone. Emily pressed back against the seat, her voice shaking. "I'm not going anywhere with you." His hand closed around her elbow, firm, unbreakable, and he pulled her out into the rain. "Wrong car," he said, voice flat and cold, eyes scanning the street as he pulled her toward the entrance. "Those men saw your face. Now you're coming with me." "I'm not." You walk away, they grab you in 2 minutes. His jaw tightened, rain streaming down his face. "They think you're my woman. They'll use you to get to me, or they'll kill you to send a message." Her blood ran cold, but she kept pulling against his grip. "Tell them I'm not. Tell them this was a mistake." "Won't matter." Still walking, still pulling her forward with that unshakable grip. "They saw you in my car. That's enough. You can't just stop talking." The words cut like a knife. "I have things to handle, and you're not dying on my watch because you got into the wrong damn car." The lobby doors burst open. This line seamlessly leads into Chapter 1's backstory about Emily's forgotten birthday dinner and her invisible life. Just like the competitors, the front door burst open, transitioned into Rose's introduction. This structure mirrors the competitors' flow, while keeping your story completely unique and emotionally distinct. A woman in a sleek security uniform stood behind the marble desk, her hand already moving towards something beneath the counter. Jack didn't break stride. 40, he said, voice clipped. The woman's hand relaxed. "Mr. Russo." "Should I?" No one comes up. No one leaves. "Lock it down." Emily tried to dig her heels in, but her wet shoes slid uselessly across polished marble as he dragged her toward the private elevator. The doors opened immediately, like they'd been waiting for him. "Please," she whispered as he pulled her inside. "I have work tomorrow. People will notice I'm gone." "Will they?" He pressed his thumb to a biometric scanner, and the elevator lurched upward with stomach-dropping speed. Those steel-gray eyes found hers in the mirrored walls, and something in his expression made her throat close. "Your friends didn't notice you left dinner 2 hours ago. Your phone's been dead for 40 minutes. Who exactly is looking for you, Emily?" The way he said her name, like he already knew everything about her, made her skin prickle. "How do you know my name?" He pulled her license from his pocket, the photo she hated staring back at her. "Fell out when you dove for cover. Emily Carter, 26 today, graphic designer at Morrison & Blake." His eyes scanned the card with clinical efficiency. "West 47th Street, studio apartment, probably $1,200 a month if you're lucky." She snatched for it, but he held it just out of reach. "Give it back. You got into my car." He pocketed the license, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "You became my problem the second Marconi's men saw your face. So no, Emily Carter, you don't get your license back. You don't get your phone. You don't get to leave." The elevator slowed, and the doors opened onto a penthouse that stole what little breath she had left. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a rain-drenched Manhattan, the city lights blurring into streaks of gold and red below. Everything was sharp angles and cold luxury, black leather, chrome fixtures, abstract art that probably cost more than her annual salary. A man materialized from a hallway, broad-shouldered and stone-faced, gun holstered at his hip. "Boss." "Status." Marconi made his move. Jack released Emily's arm, and she stumbled back against the wall. 3 cars, professional hit. "They wanted me dead tonight." The man's eyes cut to Emily, assessing. "And her?" "Wrong place, wrong time." Jack shrugged out of his jacket, revealing a shoulder holster and the lean, dangerous build beneath his dress shirt. "They saw her. That makes her a target. So we're babysitting now." The man's voice held an edge. Jack's expression turned to ice. "We're keeping her alive, Tony. There's a difference." Emily's voice came out stronger than she expected. "I'm standing right here. Stop talking about me like I'm a problem to be managed." Jack moved so fast she didn't see him coming. One moment he was across the room. The next he was inches from her face, one hand braced against the wall beside her head. "You are a problem," he said quietly, and the softness of his voice was more terrifying than any shout. "You got into the wrong car on the worst possible night, and now Dominic Marconi thinks you're mine. So yes, Emily, you're exactly a problem to be managed." Her heart hammered against her ribs. This close, she could see the rain still caught in his dark hair, the pale scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the way his gray eyes held absolutely no warmth. "Happy birthday," he said and walked away. Emily woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the disorienting realization that she had no idea where she was. The bed beneath her was obscenely comfortable, the sheets Egyptian cotton, the room decorated in shades of cream and silver that screamed expensive minimalism. Then she remembered. The wrong car. The gunfire. Steel-gray eyes in the rearview mirror. She bolted upright, still wearing her silver dress from last night, now wrinkled and stained with champagne. The door was closed but unlocked. She tried the windows first, sealed, no latches, glass so thick it didn't even vibrate when she pounded on it. The city sprawled 40 stories below, people moving like ants through morning traffic. Bulletproof, a voice said behind her. She spun to find Tony leaning against the doorframe, coffee mug in hand, expression utterly bored. You could throw a chair at it and it wouldn't crack. Believe me, people have tried. Let me out. Her voice shook despite her best effort. I won't tell anyone what happened. I'll forget I ever saw him. You think this is about what you saw? Tony moved into the room, setting the coffee on the nightstand. Sweetheart, you became leverage the second Marconi's shooters clocked you in Jack's car. They don't care if you're his girlfriend or a random civilian. You were in his back seat, and that's enough. Who's Marconi? Dominic Marconi. Runs half the illegal operations in Lower Manhattan, and wants the other half Jack controls. Tony's expression darkened. 3 years ago, they killed Jack's brother Michael in a restaurant. Shot him 6 times while his daughter watched. She was 4. Emily's stomach turned. That's horrible, but I'm not part of this. The elevator chimed, and a woman's voice rang through the penthouse. Jackie, I swear to God, if you're bleeding somewhere. A dark-haired woman strode into view, designer heels clicking on marble, 2 children trailing behind her. She stopped cold when she saw Emily, her sharp brown eyes sweeping from rumpled dress to bare feet. Well, she said slowly. This is new. The little girl, maybe 7, peeked around her mother's legs. Mama, who's that? That's what I'd like to know. The woman turned to Tony with raised eyebrows. Where's my brother? Office. Dealing with last night. Last night, the woman's voice went sharp. What happened last night? Before Tony could answer, Emily found her voice. He kidnapped me. Your brother locked me in his car, got me shot at, and now he won't let me leave. Marconi hit us on 5th Avenue. Tony cut in. She got in the wrong car. They saw her. Understanding flooded the woman's face, followed by something like pity. Oh, honey. I'm Sophia, Jack's sister. These are my kids, Luca and Isabella. She crouched to her daughter's level. Bella, go play in the den with your brother. Mama needs to talk. The children disappeared, and Sophia turned back to Emily with the kind of gentle firmness usually reserved for delivering bad news. How much did Tony tell you? That I'm leverage. That I can't leave. Emily's voice cracked. That someone named Marconi wants to kill your brother. And everyone Jack loves. Sophia's eyes held a weight Emily couldn't begin to comprehend. Including random women they think might matter to him. Emily grabbed a decorative vase from the nightstand and hurled it at the window with every ounce of strength she had. It shattered against the glass, which didn't even crack, pieces raining down on imported rugs. 40 stories. Jack's voice came from the doorway, cold and factual. Even if you break the glass, which you won't, you'd have about 3 seconds before you hit the street. He looked past her to his sister. Sophia, you shouldn't have brought the kids. You got ambushed and didn't call me. Sophia's voice turned steel. What did you expect? His jaw tightened. Take them home. Now. Not until you tell me the plan for her. Jack's eyes found Emily's, and something passed through them too quick to name. She stays until Marconi's handled. Then she goes back to her life and forgets this happened. And if she can't, Sophia pressed. She will. His voice dropped to something absolute. Because the alternative is a funeral. 3 days of captivity had taught Emily that Jack's penthouse operated like a small nation. Tony managed security, Sophia appeared daily with food and pointed questions, and Jack himself remained a ghost. Present in the coffee that appeared each morning, the locks that clicked whenever she approached the elevator, the shadow that passed her doorway at midnight. On the 4th night, Sophia arrived with bags from Bergdorf's and an expression that meant Emily's cooperation wasn't optional. Family dinner, she announced, hanging a garment bag on the closet door. You're coming, and you're wearing something that doesn't look like you slept in it. I'm not family. Emily didn't look up from the sketchpad Tony had reluctantly provided after she'd threatened to draw on the walls. I'm a hostage. You're under Jack's protection, which makes you family whether you like it or not. Sophia unzipped the bag with a flourish. Now get dressed before I make you. The dress was midnight blue silk, simple but devastating, with a neckline that would graze her collarbones and sleeves that would fall just past her wrists. Emily stared at it, something uncomfortable tightening in her chest. I don't understand, she whispered. Sophia's expression softened. Jack ordered it 2 days ago. Gave them your exact measurements, described the color that would complement your skin tone. She paused. My brother notices everything. He just doesn't usually care. The dress fit like it had been sewn onto her body. Emily stared at her reflection, barely recognizing the woman looking back, poised, elegant, like someone worth remembering. The dining room had been transformed. Candles flickered across a table set for 8, and voices drifted from the kitchen where Sophia directed operations like a general. Tony stood by the windows with 2 other men, all 3 turning when Emily appeared. Jack was the last to notice. He stood at the head of the table, pouring wine, his back to her. Then Tony said something low, and Jack turned. The wine bottle paused mid-pour. His steel-gray eyes traveled from her heels up the blue silk to her face, and for 3 heartbeats, something cracked in that frozen expression, something that looked almost like pain. Emily! Isabella launched herself across the room, wrapping small arms around Emily's legs. You're wearing blue. That's my favorite color. The moment shattered. Jack's expression reset to stone, and he finished pouring the wine with mechanical precision. Dinner was chaos. Sophia's sharp commentary, Tony's dry humor, the kids' laughter cutting through the tension. Emily found herself laughing at something Lucas said about his soccer coach, and the sound felt foreign in her throat. Jack remained silent throughout, but she felt his eyes on her like a physical weight. When Sophia herded the children to the den for a movie, Emily slipped onto the balcony, needing air. The city sprawled below, lights bleeding into the dark sky. You'll freeze out here. She didn't turn at Jack's voice. I'm fine. Footsteps, then the weight of his suit jacket settled over her shoulders, still warm from his body. She grabbed for it instinctively, and he didn't move away. The dress, she said quietly. How did you know my size? You were shaking in my car. Silver dress soaked through. His voice was different out here, rougher. 5'4", maybe 115. Size 2, maybe 4. Shoe size 6 based on the heels you kicked off. You remembered all that. He was silent for a long moment. You looked cold, he said finally. Now you won't be. Emily turned to face him, and in the dim balcony light, his expression held something she couldn't name. I'm still a prisoner, she whispered. I know. I should hate you. You should. But the jacket was warm, and for the first time in years, someone had noticed she was cold. Jack appeared in the doorway of Emily's room at 9 the next morning, holding a stack of contracts thick enough to be a weapon. You're a designer, he said without preamble. I need your eyes on something. She looked up from her sketchpad, where she'd been drawing Isabella's face from memory. I design marketing materials for a dental clinic. Not exactly high-level work. You went to Parsons. He dropped the contracts on the bed. Full scholarship. Graduated top 15%. Tony found your portfolio online. It's good. Heat crept up her neck. You investigated me. I investigate everyone. He tapped the top contract. These are agreements for a gallery opening in Soho. The design feels off, but I can't articulate why. You can. Emily pulled the papers closer, suspicious but curious. The layout was technically competent but soulless. Corporate template dressed up with stock images and predictable typography. This is lazy, she said before she could stop herself. Whoever designed this doesn't understand negative space or visual hierarchy. The font pairing is safe to the point of boring, and this color palette. She gestured at the muddy browns and grays. Screams, I gave up. Something shifted in Jack's expression. Fix it. What? You clearly see the problems. Show me the solution. He pulled out his phone. What do you need? 2 hours later, Emily sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by printouts and fabric swatches Tony had procured from somewhere. Jack worked at the dining table, laptop open, occasionally glancing over as she muttered to herself and rearranged elements. Try this. She held up her redesign, clean lines, breathing room, a color story that actually told one. He studied it for a long moment. It's better. It's exponentially better, Sophia called from the kitchen. Jackie, tell the girl she's brilliant. She knows, he said, but his eyes stayed on Emily's face. Don't you? No one at Morrison and Blake had ever asked her that. They took her concepts and stripped her name off them, handed them to senior designers who presented them as their own. But Jack looked at her work like it mattered, like she mattered. That evening, she found herself on the rooftop terrace, a space Tony had unlocked after what she suspected was Jack's quiet approval. The city stretched endlessly below, and she sketched the skyline with charcoal, losing herself in the rhythm of creation. You see it differently than most people. She didn't startle at Jack's voice anymore. See what? Everything. He moved to the railing beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Most people look at the city and see buildings. You see patterns. Light and shadow. Negative space. That's just how my brain works. It's a gift. His voice carried something unfamiliar, almost wistful. Michael used to see like that. He painted. Emily's hand stilled on the page. Your brother? He saw beauty everywhere. Even in this. Jack gestured at the city. I haven't been able to see it since he died. She looked at him. Really looked. And saw past the cold control to something broken underneath. What do you see now? He turned to meet her eyes, and the distance between them felt suddenly charged. I'm starting to remember. Uncle Jack staring again. Isabella's voice drifted from the doorway. Sophia appeared behind her daughter, eyebrows raised. Bella, that's rude. But her smile was knowing. Jack's expression shuddered immediately. Sophia, take your daughter home. We just got here, Sophia protested, but her eyes danced between them. Though I can see we're interrupting something. You're not, Emily said quickly, but her cheeks burned. After they left, Jack remained on the terrace, and Emily found herself studying his profile against the city lights. He looked less like a captor now, and more like a man who'd forgotten what it meant to be alive. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For seeing my work. Really seeing it. His jaw tightened. It deserved to be seen. Emily couldn't sleep. The penthouse was too quiet at 1 a.m. The city below reduced to scattered lights and distant sirens. She padded through the darkened living room in borrowed pajamas, drawn toward the one door that had remained locked since her arrival. Tonight it stood open. Jack's study was nothing like the rest of the penthouse. Where everything else was cold minimalism, this room breathed. Walls covered in paintings, shelves crammed with books, a vintage record player in the corner. Jack sat at the desk, shirt sleeves rolled up, a tumbler of whiskey catching lamplight. He looked up when she appeared in the doorway, and something passed through his expression too quick to catch. Can't sleep. His voice was rougher at this hour, stripped of its usual control. Too quiet. She stepped inside, drawn to a painting on the wall, abstract blues and golds that made her chest ache. Did your brother paint this? 2 months before he died. Jack rose, moving to stand beside her. He called it before the fall. I didn't understand what he meant until after. They stood in silence, shoulders nearly touching, and Emily felt the weight of his grief like a physical presence. I think about kissing you, he said suddenly, voice low and devastating. More than I should. Her breath caught. Jack, but I won't. He turned to face her, and his eyes held something raw. You're here because I won't let you leave. That makes everything else impossible. Heat flooded her veins, want and anger twisting together. What if I want you to? His jaw clenched, a muscle jumping beneath stubble. You don't know what you want. You're scared and confused and looking for something to make this situation feel less like captivity. Don't tell me what I feel. She stepped closer, reckless with something she couldn't name. You noticed my dress size. You gave me your jacket. You see my work when no one else bothers to look. Emily. Her name came out rough, almost pleading. Stop. Why? She was close enough now to see the gold flecks in his gray eyes. Because you're afraid you might actually feel something. He moved so fast she gasped. One hand cupping her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. I feel everything, he said, voice dropping to something dangerous. That's the problem. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Then kiss me. For one suspended moment, she thought he would. His gaze dropped to her mouth, his breath ghosting across her lips, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw like he was memorizing it. Then he stepped back, putting careful distance between them. You deserve choice, he said, and his voice carried something that sounded like self-loathing. Real choice, not something born from captivity and Stockholm Syndrome. That's not what this is. How would you know? His expression turned to stone again, walls slamming back into place. You can't leave. You can't go back to your life. You're trapped 40 stories up with a man who put you here. He moved toward the door. When you're free to walk away and you still want this, then we'll talk. Jack! Go to bed, Emily. She stood alone in the study, surrounded by his dead brother's paintings, her lips still tingling from a kiss that never happened. The man who'd kidnapped her, who controlled every aspect of her captivity, had just walked away because he cared about her consent. Emily had spent 26 years being overlooked and forgotten. But Jack Russo saw everything, her dress size, her talent, the wanting in her eyes, and refused to take what she was offering because it wouldn't be fair. She touched her face where his thumb had been and tried to reconcile the man who locked her in with the man who wouldn't kiss her without her freedom. The man who came with the ultimatum wore a suit the color of wet concrete and a smile that didn't touch his eyes. He stood just inside the penthouse, dripping rain onto the marble, flanked by two silent men who scanned every corner like they expected a sniper behind the furniture. Jack leaned against the back of the sofa, arms folded, expression carved from stone. Dominic sends his regards, the messenger said, gaze flicking briefly to Emily before snapping back to Jack. And a simple choice. You sign over the docks and the East River warehouses, or he buries your sister's kids in matching coffins. Sophia sucked in a breath sharp enough to cut. Tony shifted his weight, one hand hovering near his gun. Emily felt the room tilt. You can't be serious, she whispered. They're children. The messenger's smile widened a fraction. Marconi's very serious. 48 hours. After that, accidents happen. Wrong playground. Wrong car. His eyes landed on Emily again, lingering. You of all people know how that goes. Jack's voice came out flat. Get out of my building before I stop being polite. 48 hours, the man repeated, backing toward the elevator. We'll be in touch. The doors slid shut, and silence crashed down. Sophia rounded on her brother. Jack, he means it. Dominic doesn't bluff with family. We have to move the kids. Leave the city. Leave the country. He'll follow, Jack said. You know that. Then give him what he wants. Emily heard her own voice before she decided to speak. Every head turned toward her. Give him the warehouses. The docks. Whatever keeps them alive. Jack's eyes narrowed. You don't understand how this works. I understand perfectly, she shot back. They threaten children. Are a few square miles of illegal business really worth their lives? Sophia pressed her lips together, saying nothing, but hope sparked in her eyes. If I give him the docks, Jack said slowly, he doesn't stop there. He smells weakness and keeps taking. Neighborhoods, businesses, people. He turns this city into something you don't survive. Then find another way, Emily said. Because doing nothing is handing him Luca and Isabella in body bags. He pushed off the sofa and closed the distance between them in 3 measured steps. You think I haven't been planning for this? His voice was low, dangerous. Every move I make is about keeping them breathing. You want me to fold and gift wrap our world to the man who shot my brother in front of his daughter. And I'm telling you, she said, heartbeat hammering, that no empire is worth those kids. Not your pride. Not your revenge. Nothing. Something ugly and wounded flashed through his eyes. This isn't about territory, he snapped. It's about making sure Marconi never gets to do to them what he did to Michael. You think I want this war? I didn't start it. But if I have to burn half the city to keep them safe, I will. She stepped closer, anger and fear colliding. So you'll risk Sophia's children to prove a point to a man who doesn't care if they live or die. That's not protection, Jack. That's obsession. His hands clenched at his sides. Don't talk about things you don't understand. Then explain it, she demanded. Explain why you're willing to gamble their lives instead of walking away. Because walking away means he wins, Jack bit out. And when men like Marconi win, girls like you end up in shallow graves. The words hit harder than she expected. Girls like me? I got into the wrong car, Jack. I didn't sign up for this. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then snapped back up. You think I don't know that? You think I don't lie awake at night counting the ways this goes wrong for you? Then prove it, she said, voice dropping. Prove you care more about them, about me, than about your war. Something in him broke then. Some tight control he'd been holding since the moment the messenger walked in. He grabbed her, hands framing her face, and his mouth crashed onto hers with a desperation that stole her breath. There was nothing gentle about it. This was fury and fear, and 3 weeks of tension detonating at once. She tasted whiskey and rain, and the kind of hunger that had nothing to do with power. Her fingers fisted in his shirt, dragging him closer, answering with equal force. The room, the threat, the city outside, All of it disappeared under the heat of his mouth, the rough slide of his hands, the quiet, almost broken sound he made when she kissed him back instead of pulling away. When he finally tore himself back, they were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against hers, eyes closed like he was fighting himself. "This is exactly why I didn't want to touch you," he said hoarsely. "Because once I started, I wasn't going to be able to stop." She could still feel the imprint of his mouth, the way he'd shaken under her hands. "Jack." His eyes opened, raw and unguarded. "He can have the docks," he said quietly. "He can have the warehouses. He can carve up every inch of territory I built." His thumb brushed her lower lip, almost reverent. "But he doesn't get you. Ever." The declaration should have terrified her. Instead, something warm and treacherous unfurled in her chest. Somewhere between the wrong car and this impossible kiss, Emily realized with a jolt of panic that she was falling. For the man who'd stolen her freedom, and for the way he'd just proven he'd burn his own world down before he let anyone touch her. Jack brought the files at dawn, dropping 3 boxes on the dining table with a thud that made coffee cups rattle. "Marconi's financial records," he said, voice raw from lack of sleep. "Everything Tony could pull without triggering alarms. If there's leverage in here, we need to find it before the deadline." Emily stared at the mountain of paper. "I'm a designer, not an accountant. You see patterns." He met her eyes, and something passed between them, heat and memory of last night's kiss. "That's all this is. Look." She started with bank statements, legal filings, property records that blurred together after the first hour. Tony brought coffee. Sophia appeared with lunch. Jack worked silently across from her, occasionally sliding another folder her way. By late afternoon, Emily's vision had gone fuzzy, but something nagged at the edge of her consciousness. She pulled 6 folders from the stack, spreading them across the table. "These galleries," she said slowly. "Marconi owns 6 art galleries in Manhattan?" Jack glanced up. "Real estate holdings. Part of his portfolio. Look at the transaction patterns." She lined up the bank statements side by side. They're identical. Same amounts, same intervals, down to the day. Chelsea Modern, Tribeca Arts Collective, Soho Gallery 6. Every single one deposits exactly $47,000 every 2 weeks. Tony moved closer, frowning. "Art sales are random. No gallery pulls identical numbers like clockwork." "Exactly." Emily's pulse quickened. "And look at the listed artists. Half these names don't exist. I spent 4 years at Parsons. I know every emerging artist in this city." She tapped one name. "Marcus Bellamy sold a piece for $80,000 according to this. But he's not on any gallery roster, any art blog, any exhibition history. He's a ghost." Jack straightened slowly. "Keep going." She pulled up images on her phone, cross-referencing addresses. Chelsea Modern's listed location is a dry cleaner. Tribeca Arts Collective is a parking garage. These galleries don't exist, Jack. They're shells. "Money laundering," Tony breathed. "He's running dirty money through fake art sales." Sophia appeared in the doorway, Luca and Isabella trailing behind her. "What did you find?" Emily looked up, seeing the hope and fear warring in Sophia's expression. "Proof. Federal crime-level proof. If we give this to the FBI, Marconi goes to prison for 20 years minimum." Sophia crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled Emily into a crushing embrace. "You brilliant, beautiful girl. You just saved my children." Jack remained motionless, staring at the folders like they might detonate. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful. "This evidence could take down more than Marconi. Financial records like these. They touch everyone in our world, including us." The implications settled like ice in Emily's stomach. She held the power to destroy not just the man threatening Sophia's children, but potentially Jack's entire operation. "I know," she said quietly. Their eyes met across the table, and she saw the question he wouldn't ask. "What are you going to do with it?" Tony cleared his throat. "We need to move fast. Copy everything, get it somewhere safe." But Emily couldn't look away from Jack, from the man who'd kissed her like she was oxygen, who'd chosen her safety over his empire. She held his entire world in her hands now. The power to free herself by destroying him, or to protect him and stay complicit. "Emily," Sophia said softly, "you're one of us now. Family protects family." The words should have felt like manipulation. Instead, they felt like the truth she'd been avoiding since the moment Jack walked away from kissing her. That somewhere between captivity and choice, she'd stopped wanting to leave. The FBI field office in Federal Plaza felt like stepping into a different universe. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, the smell of burnt coffee and institutional anxiety. Emily sat across from Agent Sarah Chun, a flash drive containing Marconi's entire financial empire resting between them like a live grenade. Jack had driven her himself, said nothing when she'd asked him to wait in the car. Tony stood outside the door now, visible through the glass partition, arms crossed. "Walk me through it again," Chin said, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. 6 shell galleries, forged artist identities, systematic money laundering over 4 years. Emily did, laying out the patterns she'd found, the identical transactions, the ghost artists who existed only on paper. She'd spent 2 days scrubbing every reference to Jack's operations from the files, a surgery so precise even Tony had been impressed. Chun plugged in the drive, scrolling through documents. "This is solid. Airtight, actually. We can move on Marconi within 48 hours. She looked up. "How did you come across this information, Ms. Carter?" The lie came easier than it should have. "I'm a designer. I was consulting on a gallery contract and noticed inconsistencies. Started pulling threads. And Jack Russo?" Chen's voice sharpened. "Your employer? Has nothing to do with Marconi's operations," Emily said firmly. "This is about stopping a criminal who threatens children." Chen studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "We'll be in touch. Don't leave town." Jack didn't speak during the drive back, hands steady on the wheel, jaw tight. Only when they'd cleared Manhattan and hit the empty stretch of highway did he pull over, engine idling. "You could have given them everything," he said, staring through the windshield. "Every file had my fingerprints on it. One word from you, and I'd be in the cell next to Marconi." "I know." He turned to face her, and his eyes held something raw. "Why didn't you?" Emily's throat tightened. "Because you gave me a choice when you didn't have to. You walked away when I wanted you to kiss me. You chose Sophia's children over your empire." She reached across the console, fingers finding his. "Because somewhere between the wrong car and now, you stopped being my captor and became someone I didn't want to lose." His hand tightened on hers. "Emily, I choose you," she said, the words falling between them like a vow. "Not because you kept me. Because I want to stay." Something cracked in his carefully constructed control. He pulled her across the console, mouth finding hers with a desperation that made her gasp. This wasn't the angry kiss from before. This was gratitude and disbelief and 3 weeks of wanting compressed into the slide of his lips, the way his hands trembled against her face. "Take me home," she whispered against his mouth. His eyes searched hers. "Emily, you don't have to." "I know," she said. "That's why I want to." The penthouse felt different when they returned. Less like a prison, more like the threshold of something irrevocable. Jack led her to his bedroom, the one space she'd never entered. And when he kissed her this time it was slow, reverent, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "I'm not captive anymore. I'm here because I choose this. Choose you." "Say it again," he said roughly, forehead pressed to hers. "I choose you, Jack Russo." When he kissed her again, it wasn't captor and prisoner, criminal and hostage. It was 2 people who'd found each other in the wreckage of the wrong car and decided to build something real from the ruins. Later, wrapped in sheets that smelled like him, Emily traced the scar on his shoulder and realized she'd stopped counting the days until freedom. Because freedom wasn't about leaving anymore. It was about choosing to stay with the man who'd seen her when the rest of the world looked away. The gallery lights made everything look like a dream. Emily stood in the center of the Soho space. A real one this time, not a shell corporation, surrounded by her work. Charcoal sketches of the city, watercolors of moments she'd captured from Jack's rooftop, oil paintings of faces that had become family. "Stop fidgeting," Sophia said, adjusting Emily's dress, emerald silk this time because Jack had learned her favorite color. "You look perfect. I can't believe he did this." Emily's voice wavered. "An entire gallery opening. For my birthday. He's been planning it for months." Sophia squeezed her hand. "My brother doesn't do anything halfway." The doors opened and people flooded in. Art collectors, critics, and faces Emily recognized from Jack's world. But also her former co-workers from Morrison and Blake, looking stunned as they studied work that had once been dismissed as hobby sketches. Isabella appeared at Emily's elbow, tugging her sleeve. "Aunt Emily, come see what Tony made." The cake was an architectural marvel. 4 tiers covered in edible flowers, with 27 picked out in gold leaf. Tony stood beside it looking simultaneously proud and embarrassed. "You baked this," Emily breathed. "YouTube tutorials," he muttered. "Don't make it weird." Luca thrust a wrapped box into her hands. "From me and Bella. We picked it ourselves." Inside was a leather-bound sketchbook, her initials embossed in gold, filled with blank pages waiting for her vision. Emily's throat tightened. "It's perfect. Thank you." The crowd quieted as Jack stepped onto the small platform near the back wall. He looked devastating in a charcoal suit, but it was his eyes that held her. Warm now, no longer frozen. "A year ago," he began, voice carrying through the gallery, "Emily Carter got into the wrong car on her birthday." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Emily's cheeks burned. She was cold, forgotten, invisible to people who should have seen her brilliance. His gaze found hers across the room. "Turned out to be the only right decision I ever made, being in that wrong place at that wrong time." He stepped down, moving through the crowd until he stood before her. "You saw patterns no one else could see. You saved lives with a designer's eye and a heart too good for the world I dragged you into." His hand found hers. "And somehow you chose to stay." "Jack," she whispered, aware of every eye on them. "This gallery, your work on these walls. This is the world seeing you the way I've seen you from the beginning." He raised her hand to his lips. "Happy birthday, Emily." Tony's phone buzzed loudly in the silence. He glanced at the screen, then looked up with something fierce in his expression. "FBI just arrested Dominic Marconi. RICO charges, money laundering, the works. He's going away for 30 years. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth, tears spilling over. The children hooped, not fully understanding but sensing freedom. Jack's grip on Emily's hand tightened. "It's over," he said quietly, just for her. "You're safe. They're safe." "We're safe," she corrected, and kissed him in front of everyone. The art critics and collectors and family who'd become hers. Later, after the champagne and the cake and the red sold stickers that appeared on half her pieces, Emily stood with Jack on the gallery's small balcony. The city spread below them, familiar now, beloved. "I got into the wrong car," she said, leaning into his warmth. "Best mistake you ever made." His arms wrapped around her waist. She turned in his embrace, seeing the man who'd noticed she was cold, who'd walked away from kissing her until she was free to choose, who'd built her a gallery because he believed her work deserved to be seen. "Not a mistake," she said, touching his face. "The right car. Just took me a while to realize it." 1 year ago, Emily Carter had been invisible, forgotten, standing on a rain-soaked sidewalk wondering if anyone would notice if she disappeared. Tonight, she stood in a gallery filled with her art, surrounded by family who loved her, in the arms of a man who'd seen her from the very beginning. The wrong car had given her everything she'd been searching for: love, purpose, and a place where she would never be forgotten again.